couple of months ago, I released 2 videos on this channel. One beating Pikmin with only yellows, and the second beating Pikmin with only blues. Aside from this abomination, they are the hardest challenges I've done on this channel, and it's really not even close. Not having access to blues means you can't get any ship parts that involve water, which is like half the parts in the game. And not having access to yellows means you can't break down any stone walls, which is a big deal because most of the parts in the game are also locked behind stone walls. To overcome these limitations, you have to pull off some of the hardest tricks in the game. Tricks that are so difficult, so tedious, so frustrating, that I swore I would never do them again. The only saving grace of these runs is that you don't have both limitations at once. I can't even imagine how hard it would be to beat this game without yellows and blues. Thank God there isn't a third type that would force me to do this. Yep, good thing Pikmin 1 only has 2 types of Pikmin. Imagine beating the game without yellows and blues. That would be crazy. No, you can't make me do this. I won't do it. You can't make me do all those tricks again, please. I can't clip the radio to that f***ing wall again. This video is sponsored by Mecha Japan. Mecha Japan is an online store that sells products from major Japanese licenses such as Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, and The Legend of Zelda. And guys, they even have Pikmin merch. Look at these little terrariums, how cute are these? I love them! Mecha Japan was kind enough to send me these Pikmin plushies and this ball board, which is just amazing. From now until June 13th, you can use our coupon code PRESSA5 to get $5 off all orders $80 USD and above. Limit 1 use per person. Be sure to follow Mecha Japan on X and Instagram to get the latest updates and information on all your favorite products. Thank you to Mecha Japan for sponsoring these 2 challenge runners. Anyways, back to the video. Let me quickly explain to you why Red Only is considered to be Pikmin 1's hardest challenge. I've already explained that a lot of the parts in the game are either located in water or locked behind stone walls, but I didn't really explain how many. There are 30 ship parts in the game. 25 of them are mandatory. 4 of them can be collected by any type, 15 of them require blues in some capacity, 14 of them require yellows in some capacity, and you want to know how many require reds? 6 parts. The bowsprit, the Libra, Omega Stabilizer, Engine, Analog Computer, and the Secret Safe. And saying reds are required to get these parts is super generous. The parts that require blues and yellows are physically impossible to get without them. The parts that quote-unquote require reds can just be obtained by having good timing. You don't have to do any crazy tricks. You can just wait out the fire geysers. So really, that number of 6 parts ends up looking more like 2. The Secret Safe and the Engine. One of them you don't even need to beat the game, and the other one only requires reds because that's the only type you have on day 1. So, to actually beat the game, you really only need reds for 1 part. And to make things worse, you need blues and yellows for 20 out of the 25 mandatory parts. At least when I did the blue only run, I had the benefit of using blues, and same for the yellow run. But using reds has no benefit. Aside from their higher attack power, which honestly isn't that helpful in a challenge like this, they are basically useless. There is no benefit to doing a red only run. All this run is a combination of the worst parts from blue only and the yellow only runs, which, mind you, took me 24 and 30 days to complete respectively, which is 54 days in total. And somehow, I'm gonna have to shave that down to 30. And honestly, I don't know how I'm gonna do it. It's the reason I've been putting this run off for so long. It's the reason I didn't ever want to do this challenge. It's really, really hard. According to Mocha G, the man who basically came up with the challenge and routed it, only 2 people have ever completed a legitimate red-only run in Pikmin 1. Yep, 2 people. That's it. And I would have been happy never attempting this in my life. But you guys won't give it up. So here you go, you sick f***s. Here's Pikmin 1, red only. Guys, can you do one favor for me? If you genuinely like the stuff on this channel, can you hit the like button on this video? It helps us out a ton, and it's really appreciated. Thank you. So, day 1 plays out like you would expect. We push the bots, get the engine, and grow 25 Pikmin. But, in a way, this day is special. This might be the first time in one of these challenge runs that I didn't have to make an exception for day 1. The blue and yellow runs had the caveat of, yeah, it's possible, as long as you ignore day 1. But we don't have that caveat anymore. The only Pikmin we can use are reds, and this is a red-only run, so we're good. But don't get used to things going so well, because it's gonna get f***ed up right away. And by right away, I mean day 2. Day 2, things are already f***ed. So, we come back to the impact site with the goal of getting the positron generator, which is trapped inside this clam, surrounded by water and locked behind this stone wall. So already we have a part that requires yellows and blues to get. There is another way inside the area that houses the clam, but it's supposed to be an exit. This ledge here made sure that you can't get up there with your Pikmin and break down the wall. But thankfully, there's a very easy way we can get around this. If we build the stick and then throw our Pikmin over this wall, we can walk up this slope and use a little trick called pellet clipping to get out of bounds. And if you've seen one of my videos before, you've definitely seen me do this. But for those who haven't, I'll give a quick explanation of what's going on here. When you press down on the D-pad, Olimar will lie down. And lying down just happens to be the most broken mechanic in the game. When Olimar lies down, the game treats him like an object. Think pellet, ship part, dead enemy, etc. And the game doesn't really like it when 2 objects overlap. So when they do, the game tries to fix it, and does this by moving one of the objects. So here, when Olimar lies inside the pellet, the game is basically like, nah, you guys can't both be here, and just pushes Olimar over the wall. Once we're over the wall, we can walk out of bounds and meet up with our Pikmin. After that, we can dive headfirst into the water, make sure they get ashore, and get started on the clam. Which is a bit of an issue because it's surrounded by a bunch of water. Luckily for us, there's a little island we can use to attack the clam from. We just have to throw our red Pikmin on the island, then onto the clam, whistle them back to the island, and rinse and repeat until the clam's dead. Wait, what? Yeah, apparently if you kill the clam while it's closed, the generator will just sit in the clam, which is not going to work for us because we need the generator in the water. And I'll explain why in a second, but first, we need to reset the day and do this over again. So I do everything over again, get back to the clam, and this time it actually spits it into the water. Okay, so the reason we needed it in the water was because we're going to perform a trick called object nudging, which is basically the same thing as object clipping, but instead of moving Olimar, we're moving the object instead. If we run at an object and lie down as soon as we hit it, we will push it forward a tiny amount. And if we do this over and over again, we can actually move objects pretty far with just Olimar. But object nudging has its downsides. It's really slow, kinda hard to pull off, and just behaves super weirdly sometimes. Like, right here for some reason, I'm just unable to move the generator anymore, so I had to reset. So I did everything the same again, and realized that as soon as I collected the 20 pellet, the generator just stopped being able to get pushed. I have no idea why this happens, but it is super weird and caused me to reset the day twice, so I thought I'd point it out. So after my third reset of the day, I was finally able to push the generator all the way across the pond into this little corner here. And all we have to do now is get the generator onto the shore and we're home free. Unfortunately, while pushing things in a flat plane is relatively easy, pushing objects up shores or inclines is almost impossible. You can see here, no matter how much we push the generator, it just doesn't want to go up the shore. Luckily for us though, there's a bit of cool tech we can use to get around this. And it's called waypoint resetting. Basically, the game has set points or pathways that it thinks parts should be on at all times. And if you put a part somewhere that's not along one of these pathways, the game doesn't really like it. It doesn't like it so much that if you end the day and come back the next morning, it'll actually just move the part where it thinks it should be. And if you think about it, it kind of makes sense, because as far as the game's concerned, Pikmin are the only thing that should be moving ship parts. And Pikmin will only ever move parts along these pathways. So technically, that's where the part should always be. But if we put the generator in a spot the game doesn't think it should be and then end the day, we can come back on the next day and it'll just be sitting there on the shore waiting for us. And yeah, we're going to be abusing the hell out of this because it's one of the few tricks that actually makes this run possible. So after grabbing the part, we spend the rest of the day spouting as many red Pikmin as possible. This is basically the only time in the run we'll be able to do this. There's just so many things we have to do and they all take so long. In fact, we're already behind the 8 ball. It's already day 4 and we've only collected 2 ship parts. So we gotta really make some progress on day 4, and it's gonna be tricky, because navigating the Forest of Hope without yellow Pikmin is not an easy task. 5 out of the 8 parts in this level are locked behind stone walls, and the entire second half of the level is locked behind them as well. You can enter the second half by walking off this ledge, but you can't really go back this way, so it's not gonna help us. So we're gonna have to find some ways to first bypass these walls ourselves and then somehow bring ship parts back through them. And it's not gonna be easy. The first thing I do is get some Pikmin on this wall, then take 15 over to build these 2 bridges. Then I come over to where the yellow onion is, throw some Pikmin out of bounds, lure this Bulborb over to the wall, kill it, then use the pelleted drops to clip out of bounds. We can now walk all the way over to where the cannon beetle is and break down the wall that's guarding the radiation canopy. Normally, you're supposed to kill this guy so you can safely escort the canopy out, but we don't really have to do that. If we zoom in our camera real close and make sure the cannon beetle isn't on the screen, we can just grab the part and waltz out of there like nothing happened. Basically, if enemies aren't on the screen in this game, they aren't loaded. So when we zoom in the camera like this, we're basically deloading the cannon beetle. And if he's not loaded, he can't hurt us. So we can basically get the part for free. After that, we drop the canopy off by this Bulborb because we literally can't bring it back to base right now. Then we grab the Nova Blaster and do the same thing. We then quickly run over and grab the Eternal Fuel Dynamo and throw some Pikmin on the sledge where the Snagrets are. Next, we run back to where the yellow onion is and use the same pellet to clip out of bounds again. But this time, instead of going right, we go left. We head right past the stone wall, right past the bots, fall down, and then fight some Snagrets. Once we kill it, it drops the Geiger counter, and bringing it back to base is kind of an issue. You would think the Pikmin would just carry it right off the ledge and bring it back to the base, but that's not what they want to do. They want to bring it back towards the bots and the stone wall, which obviously we can't do because we didn't get rid of either of them. Luckily, if we nudge the part close enough to the edge, the red Pikmin will overcome their fear of heights and just bring it down. Now it's almost the end of the day, but we still have one more thing we have to do. We walk over and use the pellet a 3rd time to clip out of bounds. We quickly make our way over to the Extraordinary Bowl and nudge it as fast as we can into this corner. And you've probably already guessed, but yeah, this is another spot we can use for a waypoint reset. If we just nudge it into this corner and come back the next morning, the bolt will just magically be outside the stone wall. And now that the Extraordinary Bolt was freed from its prison, we only had a couple more things to do to finish setting up for the day. We quickly got the Sagittarius and then snuck the Shock Absorber by the Sleeping Bulborb. And with those 2 parts collected, we had already obtained half the parts in the Forest of Hope. Now, all we had left was the easy part. All we had left to do was to clip the rest of the parts through the stone walls. Oh god. Yeah, I lied. This part isn't easy. This part sucks ass. What we have to do is somehow get these parts back to the ship. And there's only one way to do that. Through this path here, or this path. And they're both blocked off by stone walls. And I know what you're thinking. Why can't you just waypoint reset the parts past the walls like you did with the Extraordinary Bolt? Because I can't! I can't do that, it doesn't work! Remember those pathways I was talking about earlier? Yeah, well, there's 2 right in front of these walls. The Pikmin normally take the parts this way, so the game considers these stable points. So the parts aren't going anywhere. There's only one way to get a part through a stone wall. And it's horrible. Basically, with a large enough force, you can clip parts through almost anything in the game. And yes, this includes stone walls. But Olimar himself can't generate that kind of force. So we have to look elsewhere. And that elsewhere is a Bulborb. If you walk in front of a Bulborb and dodge out of the way at the last second, it'll miss its bite and lunge forward. And this lunge generates a shit ton of force. So much so that it has no problem clipping parts through walls. But that's if everything goes right. Most of the time, it won't work and the part just bounces off the wall. I have no idea why it clips through sometimes and why it doesn't. It seems completely random. Sometimes it'll take like 50 attempts and sometimes it'll go in on the first try, which makes doing this super frustrating. And it wouldn't be so bad if we only had to do it with 1 part, but we have to do it with 4. And make sure you're sitting down because this is where it gets really nasty. You would think we could just clip the canopy and blast her through this wall, and the radar and bolt through this one, but we can't. We need a Bulborb to do this, and the Bulborb that's sitting by this wall is just barely not close enough. You see, every Bulborb has a home, and if it strays too far away from this home, it'll just stop what it's doing and return to it. And this wall is just outside the range of its home, so we have to instead push these parts all the way down over here to the other wall. And you've already seen how slow it is pushing parts. And we have to push 2 all the way down there. Luckily though, we can speed things up a bit and use the Bulborb to help. The same way we can use it to clip parts through walls, we can use the Bulborb to push parts along the ground as well. And while it is a little faster than using just Olimar, it's still not very fast. It takes us half the day to move the parts from here to here. So yeah, we got a lot of work to do. So even though we didn't push the parts very far, they are now outside the range of the Bulborb's home. So it's gonna be up to us to push them the rest of the way. And immediately upon doing this, we hit a snag. You can see here, I'm trying to push the bolt up the hill towards the Bulborb, and it just won't go. I push it forward a bit, and it almost seems like it's hitting an invisible wall and coming straight back. And that's because it literally is. The floor in Pikmin is made up entirely of polygons, which are basically just triangles. And parts move really well inside these triangles, but as soon as you cross the border from one triangle to another, it can cause major issues. Most of the time, they're not so bad, and if you have a good push that's perpendicular to the border, it'll just pass right through. But sometimes when the geometry is weird like this, the part just won't budge no matter what. That is, unless we have a really big push. And After a couple minutes of doing this, I realized I was just being stupid and we could use the Bulborb to get that push. So that's what I did, and for the next 4 days, I basically pushed the parts to this spot, used the Bulborb to push them to the wall, and then one by one, slowly clip each one through it. But yeah, it literally took 4 days to do this. As you can see, when we come back on day 9, all 4 parts are fully through the wall. And honestly, as much as I dreaded doing this again, it wasn't completely horrible. In my blue-only run, it took me 13 days to finish pushing all the parts through the wall. And here, we did it in just 9. So clearly, I had gotten better at doing this, which honestly gave me some hope. Hope that this might actually be possible. And immediately that hope was dashed because we landed in fucking hell. You know what? I was right for hating this level as a kid. It is just awful. Everything about it is awful, but there are 2 parts specifically that make it extra horrible. 2 parts that, when I originally did the yellow and blue runs, I never expected to actually get. And when I did, I swore I would never do it again. This is not hyperbole. I'm 100% serious. These 2 parts are the reason I never wanted to do red only. They're the reason I put this off for so long. But honestly, let's not even talk about them right now because I can't. I just can't. For now, we're gonna ignore them and pretend like they just don't exist. Because if we don't, I might have a breakdown. So, to distract myself from my impending doom, we go around the Forest Navel and try to collect all the easily attainable parts. I get some Pikmin working on this bridge, then make short work of the Puffstool and grab the Omega Stabilizer. Hey, one of the parts that reds are actually kind of useful for, oh my god. Shortly after, I head back to base, get 15 Pikmin to grab the Atomic Gear, then head back down and nab the Gravity Jumper. After that, I got all my Pikmin to work on this wall and started the laborious task of nudging the Ionium Jet across this small pond. And I say laborious because the Ionium Jet is especially difficult to nudge. Objects in Pikmin have different densities, and the Ionium Jet is one of the densest items in the game, which makes it almost impossible to push. You can see here, I'm trying to push it, and it's barely moving at all. Luckily though, there is a way we can get around this. If we use an object that's not very dense, like a Shearwood for example, we can push it into the Ionium Jet and make moving it a bit easier. We're basically pushing a light object into a heavy object, which somehow makes the heavy object move easier. I know, it makes no sense, but just go with it. Either way, there's no chance we're making it up the slope with the jet, so we have to once again use our good friend Waypoint Reset. It takes us half the day, but we're able to push the jet into this little corner here and go to sunset. And as you can see, when we come back, the jet is magically teleported to the upper pool. We just have to do that whole process one more time and the Ionium Jet will be free. But before we do that, let's grab our Pikmin and see if we can snag the Analog Computer and Libra. Wait, why are all my Pikmin leaves? Oh my god, why do we only have 108 Pikmin? Yeah, so it turns out when I went to Sunset last night, I completely forgot about my Pikmin. They were just left by the gate and all died. All 99 of them. Which maybe isn't a huge deal because we still have over 100 Pikmin, but we really don't have extra time to do things like, you know, sprout Pikmin, so we can't really afford to lose any more. But either way, we still have a job to do, so let's go down and grab those parts. We first tackle the Analog Computer, and you know what? This one's actually pretty easy. All we have to do is push it into this corner and wait for it to Waypoint Reset tomorrow. Next is the Libra, and you guys have literally seen me do this trick like 100 times now, so I'll go over it quickly. We lure a Shearwig over to this wall, kill it, use its pellet to clip out of bounds, clip up on this elevated area, and then nudge the Libra off the cliff. And this time, it actually got stuck in midair somehow, and I kind of panicked. But thankfully, just throwing Pikmin on it somehow got it down. I don't know. And as some kind of giant f*** you, the red Pikmin dodged both of the fire geysers perfectly, showing us exactly how useless red Pikmin are. Day 12 is honestly kind of boring. I lure another Shearwig over and proceed to push the Ionium Jet across the pool for the entire day. Are you f***ing kidding me? You see that corner right there? That's where we had to get to. We were like 10 pushes away. And then this guy just decides to be a dick. Cool. So, I spent another 13 minutes of my life pushing this stupid jet across this stupid pool. I swear to God! Yep, he did it twice. Fun, isn't it? So, I do it a third time, get it into that stupid corner, and then go and grab the analog computer. Which thankfully ends our time with the Forest Navel. At least, for now. Because for now, we're heading to the distant spring. I must have repressed any memory of completing this place because I forgot just how terrible it is. It's probably my brain's way of protecting me from traumatic events because, oh my god, is this place traumatic. Let's start off first with the repair type bolt. How I obtained this last time was by pushing it across the water and then spending literal hours watching this Wollywog knock it up the shore. It seriously took 2 hours and I still have no idea how I did it. I basically just got lucky and it somehow ended far enough up the shore that when I ended the day, it waypoint reset to a better spot. I don't know if I could do that again. I don't want to do that again. It was horrible. Thankfully though, for my sanity, there's a much easier way to do this. We first need to throw some red Pikmin up on this ledge, get them to bring the repair type bolt down, and then whistle them off before they fall into the water. We can then get them all on this ledge and slowly walk them in the out of bounds area until we reach land over here. Then we need to go back to the part and start nudging. We have to nudge it all the way until we reach this bridge and then build the bridge with our red Pikmin. If we build the bridge while the bolt is underneath it, the bridge will clip the bolt through the floor. And if we did everything right, it'll just pop out and be sitting there waiting for us to collect it. This was so much easier and faster than the first time I did it. It took me half the amount of days and probably a quarter of the hours to do it. It was so quick in fact that we even had time to grab the massage machine before the end of the day. So the next part I tackled was the Synchronium rotor, which is trapped behind a river and this gate. So the first thing we needed to do was to get it out from behind the gate. But to do that, we need to first get ourselves in there. And luckily, our old friend the Wollywog can help us do that. If we lie down near the gate and then get up as soon as he slams down on top of us, we can use his body like a pellet and clip through the wall. Once we're in there, all we need to do is nudge the rotor near this geyser and hope for a waypoint reset in the morning. And honestly, I wasn't very hopeful. I had tried doing this a bunch of times in the yellow only run, and it never worked for me. I don't know why, it just never seemed to work. So I had to break down the wall and nudge the rotor all the way to the water, which I believe took me an entire day to do so we don't really have the option to do that this time. This is gonna have to work. But either way, we leave the rotor sitting by the geyser and head over to fight the cannon beetle. Whoa, look out, red Pikmin being useful alert, whoa! We kill him pretty quickly and then grab the bowsprit and drop it in front of this stone wall. We then turn our sights to the UV lamp, which is perched up on this high ledge, which you're supposed to use yellows to get down. But if we throw some red Pikmin on this ledge here and then walk over towards this slope and get a Bulbear to attack us, We can use him the same way we used a pellet back in the Forest of Hope to clip up on this wall. Now that we're up here, we can grab our Pikmin and throw them on the UV lamp, having them drop it right beside the bowsprit once they're done. After that, we only had a couple minutes left in the day, but it was just enough time to get the Ionium Jet into the water, so we could start pushing it tomorrow. And to do this, we had to take our red Pikmin for a pretty big swim. Normally, red Pikmin wouldn't be able to do this, but I used a little trick to help them out. If you bump into a red Pikmin while it's in the water, it'll reset its drowning timer. So as long as you keep bumping into it, it can basically never drown. And we can abuse this to get all our Pikmin across this huge body of water. Sure, some of them may die, but we can get enough over to carry the Ionium Jet off the ledge just before the end of the day. And the first thing I noticed when we came back on day 15 is that the rotor actually teleported over the wall. And I was kind of shocked by this because I must have tried it like 5 or 6 times in the yellow only run and it never worked once. But then, looking back at the footage, I noticed something. I actually broke down the wall before I tried waypoint resetting the part. And I bet you that somehow affected it in some weird way. I don't know, man. Pikmin 1's crazy. But now that we have the rotor in the correct spot, we can begin pushing the Ionium Jet. And just like the jet in the Forest Naval, it's really heavy, so we're gonna need some help pushing it. Luckily, there's a water dumple nearby that we can quickly kill and use its body to push the part. I spend the entire day pushing it across this lake into this little corner, and if I did it correctly, it'll waypoint reset right beside the pilot seat when we come back tomorrow. And honestly, I was dreading tomorrow, because I knew it was coming. I knew what we had to do. We had to get that f***ing rotor out of the water. And let's just say, getting it out of the water caused me some issues on my last run. Aside from the 2 parts that shall not be named, the Synchronium rotor is probably the hardest part to get in this game. So yeah, it's not going to be fun. Basically, what we need to do is get the Wollywog to jump on this part and clip it through the floor. Once it's through the floor, we have to pray to Jesus that when it comes back up, it's on the slope of the shore like this. And I had no problem getting it to clip to the floor, but every time I did, it would just pop back up right here. No matter what I did, it would always come back up in between these 2 roots. Over and over again, I tried and the result was always the same. Until this happened. Oh my god, oh my god, oh god, it finally worked. All we needed to do now was to slowly push the router against the root so it would act as a wedge and push the router up the shore. After a couple minutes of doing this, we finally got it into a good spot. I then whistled my Pikmin so they could come and grab it. Yeah, I accidentally killed the Wollywog, which spawned some pellets that happened to push the part back into the water. Yep, so we're gonna have to do that all over again. So after another hour of trying, I finally got it back into a good spot again, and this time we didn't kill the Wollywog. So my Pikmin were able to bring the router right in front of the stone wall, and we actually had enough time left in the day to bring the jet and the pilot seat over as well. And now we're basically all set up to start pushing parts through walls again. Well, almost. We did still have the Kronos reactor, which is just a super fun part to get. To get the Kronos reactor, we have to first throw Pikmin up on this ledge, and then use the ball bear to clip out of bounds again. Then we have to make sure a snitch bug is nearby so we can lure him over towards the reactor. Once he's there, we can kill him and then use his body to clip up on this higher ledge. We then have to use the snitch bug's body to push the reactor, and we have to push it real far. I spend the entire day pushing it from here all the way to here. And once we push it far enough, I grab my red Pikmin, put them on the part, and they just barely make it onto the shore. And with that now, all the parts that are locked on the other side of these 2 stone walls are in position. All we need to do now is push them through. So naturally the next day, I don't do that at all and instead focus on getting the interstellar radio. And the interstellar radio seems like it'd be hard to get because, you know, it's surrounded by a ton of water, but it's honestly not that bad. We first have to use the same strat we used to get the massage machine, which was throwing red Pikmin up on this ledge and then slowly walking them in this out of bounds area. And I know what you're thinking. Oh, press A, why don't you just use the bridge? Well, these dickheads broke it, so I can't. But yeah, we do that. I lure one of these assholes over to the wall, kill it, and then use its body to clip out of bounds. Then we walk all the way around until we reach this little island. Next, I throw my red Pikmin on the island and lure the blowhog over until he's in throwing range. I throw some Pikmin on him and he just sits there while they beat him to death. I'm not exactly sure why this happens, but it's consistent. If you bring him towards this island and throw some Pikmin on him, he'll always just sit there until he dies. Now our goal is to push the radio as close to shore as possible so it will waypoint reset in the morning. So I spend the last 3/4 of the day doing that, but I don't quite make it to shore before the day ends. So I assumed I would have to come back the next day and push the part until it reached the shore. But somehow it was close enough that it just waypoint reset anyway, so yeah, I'll take it. With the interstellar radio done, it was now time to get some parts through those stone walls. I first started on the side with the ball bear because I still have PTSD from the other side. First up was the UV lamp, and it actually clipped into the wall super easily. Which is weird because I remember this being a huge pain in the ass. I actually mentioned in the blue only video that I maybe thought it was impossible to clip parts through Blackstone walls just because it took so long. But here, it clipped in on like the 3rd try. Which, obviously I'll take, but like, why? Next, we did the bowsprit, which did end up taking a bit longer, but we actually got super lucky and it clipped through the floor and just ended up on the other side. Now all we had left was the Kronos reactor, which also went in suspiciously easy as well. Which honestly was amazing because we were able to get all 3 parts through in a single day, which was pretty huge for this entire run. If you didn't notice, it was already day 19, and we still had to grab the gluon drive and clip 3 more parts through a wall. And we also still had the 2 parts that shall not be named. We had 6 parts to collect in 11 days. Which really doesn't seem that bad until you realize the 2 parts that shall not be named took me 5 days each in my other runs. So, in reality, we have no time to spare. We have to get these parts ASAP and get back to the Force Naval. So I first got to work on the 3 parts locked behind the wall. And, as I mentioned earlier, I had PTSD from doing this last time. And that was mostly because I accidentally killed this Wollywog here, and for some reason he just never respawned. Which may not seem like a big deal, but trust me, it was. Since this wall is in range of this Wollywog's home, getting parts through the wall with him is actually not that bad. But since I killed him, I couldn't use this Wollywog. I had to use this one, whose home is not in range of this wall. And this is significant because when the Wollywog is still in range of its home, it'll consistently try to jump on Olimar, which is what we needed to do to push parts through walls. But when it's out of the range of its home, it'll do what the Bulborbs did and try to run back to it. And there is actually a way we can get around this, which I'll explain a little later, but trust me, it's really annoying and made the whole thing terrible. But luckily, I wasn't a complete idiot this time and didn't kill the frog, so it went much better. Since the wall is within the Wollywog's home, we can actually go to one side of it, make him jump over, then walk to the other side, which will cause him to jump over the wall again and land directly on the part. And this is a much better technique to push parts through walls than just getting him to jump on it from the same side. And by using this technique, I was actually able to get all 3 parts through the wall in 2 days. I had to come back for a 3rd day to actually grab the parts, but still, this happened way quicker than I thought it would. And after it was all done, all that was left to do was grab the gluon drive and finish the distance spring. Which now means we only have 2 parts left. The 2 parts that shall not be named. Except, I'm gonna name them right now. The anti-dioxin filter and the guard satellite. I cannot express properly how hard it is getting both these parts. They are both genuinely terrible. But let's focus on the anti-dioxin filter first. The anti-dioxin filter is surrounded by a whole bunch of water. And you're probably thinking, so what? You've dealt with water before, just go in and push it with Olimar. And you're right, we can push it with Olimar. It's just really, really hard. Remember how I said the Ionium Jet was one of the heaviest parts in the game? Well, the anti-dioxin filter might be the heaviest, because it's almost impossible to move. Even when using the Wallywags, this thing barely nudges. But we've dealt with heavy parts before, and the solution is fairly simple. We just need something lighter to push the heavier object. So, if we throw our Pikmin out of bounds and lure a Shearwig over and clip out of bounds ourselves, we can walk around to where the filter is. We can then throw some Pikmin into the water to lure the Wallywag into the out of bounds area, attack him with our Pikmin till he's 1 hit away from death, then hop into the water with Olimar and kill him right by the filter. Which now allows us to push the filter without much issue. Which is cool, but it's probably the easiest part of this whole thing. Because getting it to shore is not really a problem, but getting it up the shore is almost impossible. You would think we could just use the Wallywags to knock it onto the shore like we've done in the past, but we can't. This thing is so heavy that the Wallywags hardly move it. So we can't use the frogs, and this level doesn't have any Bulborb, so what do? Well, we have to make use of this piece of shit. Yeah, he f***ed us once earlier, and he's about to f*** us again. Because we're gonna use this bread bud to pull this part out of the water. But doing so is an absolute nightmare. Because you have zero control over what the bread bud does, and what he wants. And sometimes, what he wants is to wander around on the opposite side of the map, nowhere near your location. And even when he does come by the beach, he still sometimes just walks right on by. So what we have to do is first lure over a Sheargrub, kill it, and then place its body right behind the filter. We then have to kill some of these blowhods so they also drop some pellets. If you couldn't tell, we're basically setting up a breadcrumb trail for the bread bud to follow all the way to the filter. Once we do that, we have to wait for him to come by, get lured by one of the pellets, wait for him to grab it, get some Pikmin on it, and then throw some Pikmin on top of him so he drops it. And then just hope to God that he gets attracted to the one that's behind the filter and decides to go for it. Getting this all to line up is like getting the fucking stars to align. And do you want to know what the worst part is? This isn't even the hardest part yet. The hardest part is getting him to properly bring the filter onto the shore. I literally have hours of footage of him trying to pull the part onto the shore and failing. Hours. So we have all this set up where we have to kill the Wallywag, push the part to the shoreline, put it in the right spot, and set up everything just for the bread bug to do this. This happened over and over and over again. And at this point, I was ready to give up. To expect someone to do this trick once in their lifetime is a lot. To expect someone to do this trick twice is just cruel and unusual. I was so done. I was ready to say, fuck this run, nobody's getting red only, it's over. And then, for once in this miserable piece of trash's life, he did something good. He pulled it halfway onto the shore. Oh yeah, cause did I mention this trick isn't even done yet? After all this, it's still not done. We have to now push it down the shoreline while it's stuck at a 45-degree angle. Get it into this little corner here, zoom the camera in so the part deloads and then reloads further onto the shore. then push it farther onto the shore with Olimar and hope the part waypoint resets in the morning. All of this for one part. And as I came back the next morning and walked down to the beach, I saw the most beautiful sight my eyes have ever seen. The anti-dioxin filter was fully on the shore. So we grab it, bring it back to base, and then, since we didn't need the brug bug anymore, I hunted him down and killed him for the space float. And honestly, after all that, even if he didn't have a part, I still would have killed him. And now that we've collected those 2 parts, we only have 1 part left. And it's the biggest motherfucker of them all. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is kill Beady Longlegs, which is a little difficult because there's a stone wall in our way. But if we throw our Pikmin in this out of bounds area, being very careful to avoid this invisible wall, we can lure a Sugarub over and use its body to clip into the wall, giving us full access to Beady. Once we kill him, we want to try and bring the guard satellite as close to the wall as possible. Why would we not bring it right to the wall, you may ask? Well, because it's really freaking hard. This right here is why this part is such a nightmare. It may not look like it, but this little area right before the wall is basically one big slope. This front area and these 2 sides are all sloped towards the middle, and make getting the radio to the wall super difficult. It's so difficult, in fact, that we can't do it ourselves. The Pikmin are no help because they just circle around like idiots, and nudging with Olimar doesn't work either because he just doesn't have the strength to push it up the slopes. So that means, once again, we're gonna have to make use of our good friend the Wollywog. But before we do that, we're gonna have to end the day and come back tomorrow because, trust me, we're gonna want a full day to do this. So the closest Wollywog we have is this guy right here. And as you can see, the wall is pretty far away from him. Way too far to still be considered his home. And like I mentioned earlier, when Wollywogs exit the range of their home, they just start hopping back. But there is one way we can stop this, and it's kind of a pain in the ass. Right after the Wollywog is finished jumping, we can rub against its butt and get its attention. It'll now turn towards us and jump towards our position, no matter where we are, even if it's outside of its home range. The problem is, messing this up is very easy, and if you do, he'll just hop back home, meaning you have to start all over again. So we keep rubbing on his butt until he gets close enough to the wall, lure him over to this corner, then use a pellet I set up earlier to clip through the wall right before he's about to jump so he'll follow us over. Now that he's over the wall, he's trapped, and we can start using him to push the guard satellite. And literally, I cannot stress how annoying this is to do. Since he's still outside the range of his home, we have to rub against his butt to get his attention. Once we do, we run to the other side of the part, he jumps on it, and it ends up moving it a tiny amount. Or sometimes just not at all. He'll then run back to the wall, and we have to start the whole process over again. And as you can imagine, this is really time consuming. Which is bad because Pikmin has a time limit. Trust me when I say this, getting it to the wall in a single day is difficult. Never mind clipping it through. Because, yeah, we still have to do that. It's hard to convey with words just how difficult this part is. It's something you have to experience for yourselves, but don't, because it's f***ing horrible. But something funny happened when I tried getting this part on day 27. On my very first try, something happened that I didn't even know was possible. Somehow, the fucking stars aligned and the guard satellite clipped right through the floor and spawned on the other side of the wall. The most precious gift I could have ever received from the Pikmin gods was dropped straight into my lap. I didn't even have to clip it through the wall. I didn't even have to get it up the slope. It just clipped straight through the floor. It felt like cheating. It felt wrong.
but I didn't care. We had obtained the last part in this run. Red only was done. Well, of course, this isn't 100% right. We had collected every mandatory part in this run, but there was still a non-mandatory part that we hadn't collected yet. And that part was the secret safe, which you obtain in the game's last area, the final trial. And if you've watched any of my other videos, you'll know that this part is basically impossible to obtain without yellows. And I say basically because I don't think it's ever been done before. Or at least there isn't video proof of it. Because there is no way to get Olimar to the boss without breaking down this wall. And you're probably thinking, how is that possible? We've already done so much crazy shit in this run. How can something as simple as a stone wall stop us? Well, in every other level, we had stuff to work with. Whether it be enemies or pellets, we always had something. But the final trial is completely barren. There's nothing. No enemies, no pellets, just nothing. The only thing that actually spawns in the final trial is these bomb rocks. And apparently, in incredibly rare circumstances, one of these bomb rocks can actually spawn on this lower ledge. And I say apparently because it's never been seen before. That's how rare it is. And guess what? When I arrived on day 28, it didn't happen for me either. But I still wanted to show you guys what it looked like collecting the secret safe if by some random chance the bomb did spawn on that lower ledge. So I used the moon jump cheat to get up on the higher ledge and push the bomb rock down myself. Now that the bomb is down, we can use our Pikmin to move the bots, then use the bomb to clip up on the higher ledge. Now that we're up here, we can break down this wall, kill the boss, and then bring the secret safe to this spot with our Pikmin. Now we need to nudge the secret safe into the water and bring it to this spot here so it can waypoint reset when we end the day. And when we come back tomorrow, you can see the safe teleported from this spot here over to here, which isn't super far, but it's far enough to help us out. We now need to nudge the safe through the water all the way to this bridge. Once that's done, we can get our red Pikmin to build it, and it'll slowly push the secret safe onto the shore. And now, all that's left is to bring the secret safe home. Excuse me? Yeah, so apparently when you don't encounter the other Pikmin, their onions will just lie dormant in the final trial. And this just happens to block the secret safe from getting back to the ship. So, as a final f*** you from the game, we need to slowly push the safe past the blue onion so our Pikmin can bring it back to the ship. And obviously, this wasn't obtained legitimately, but this is how you would do it if you somehow got insanely lucky and the bomb spawned in the right place. But yeah, guys, that's red only. It's done. The trilogy complete. Every color conquered. A journey that started 4 months ago because of the incompetence of a YouTuber that shall not be named. That continued with the blue only run and is now finished all these months later with the completion of red only. And yes, obviously, this is a 10 out of 10. And at this point, I don't think I should have to explain why. This run itself can't even be considered legitimate because I had to use save states for some of the harder parts. It is so ridiculously hard beating this game with only red Pikmin. Don't ever try it yourself, please. The only saving grace of this run being finished is that I'll never have to do it again.